Did you know that in the Netherlands they call peanut butter pindakaas, which translates literally to peanut cheese? It's called this because in 1948, when the Calvé company brought the American food product to the Dutch, any food items with the word butter in them legally had to contain butter made from milk or cream. According to the National Peanut Board, there's evidence that ancient Incan and Aztec tribes in South America were the first to grind peanuts into a paste for food. Surprisingly, peanut butter's later history is blurrier. At least 3 people are credited for inventing the food, and all 3 apparently came up with it around 50 to 60 years before the Dutch came out with peanut cheese. First was Marcellus Gilmore Edson of Canada, who patented a peanut paste in 1884. Next was a St. Louis physician named Dr. Ambrose Straub, who used it as a healthy food for elderly patients and eventually patented a peanut butter making machine in 1903. Finally, there was Dr. John Harvey Kellogg, brother of Will Keith Kellogg, who later started the popular Kellogg's Company. Kellogg patented the process for making peanut butter in 1895, although his process involved boiling rather than roasting peanuts. Peanut butter finally gained popularity when it was introduced in 1904 at the World's Fair in St. Louis. Up until the 1920s, peanut butter only came in its crunchier form. That was until Joseph Rosefield came up with a process using partially hydrogenated oil to make it smooth and creamy. He licensed his process to a company that released what would later become Peter Pan, a popular peanut butter brand. Rosefield would later release his own brand of peanut butter, making his product even creamier by developing a new churning process. His product, Skippy peanut butter, now manufactured by Hormel Foods, is the second best-selling brand of peanut butter worldwide. The number 1 worldwide seller was developed from a product bought in 1955 by Procter & Gamble. They purchased Big Top peanut butter from William T. Young, a Kentucky businessman. They reformulated it into their new product, Jif. Their product was sweeter than other brands because they added sugar and molasses to the recipe. Securing their seat at the top of the peanut butter ladder was a 1971 ad slogan that you may remember: "Choosy mothers choose Jif." Fast forward to today, and a brand like Jif has at least 13 different peanut butters for sale. They range from the standard creamy Jif peanut butter to natural Jif with honey, and even a whipped peanut butter and chocolate spread. But what about the peanut butter and jelly sandwich? Well, a Good Housekeeping article in 1896 suggested housewives toss peanuts into their meat grinders and spread the result on bread. Then in 1901, Julia Davis Chandler published the first known recipe for the peanut butter and jelly sandwich in the Boston Cooking School magazine of Culinary Science and Domestic Economics. Decades later, Joseph Rosefield's peanut butter innovations, combined with the invention of sliced bread in 1928, helped make the peanut butter and jelly sandwich accessible to the poor and rich alike. Since they didn't have to slice the bread themselves, it was also kid-friendly. During World War II, U.S. soldiers were given peanut butter with their rations because it was an inexpensive source of protein. The soldiers would often mix it with jelly, that was also in their rations, to make it more enjoyable. After the war, when soldiers had returned home, sales of peanut butter and jelly soared. In the year 2000, a year before acquiring Jif, the J.M. Smucker Company, Smuckers, started selling pre-made frozen peanut butter and jelly sandwiches with no crust. That product is still available today. In 2016, the New York Daily News published an article that said the average American will eat 3,000 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches in their lifetime. The peanut butter and jelly sandwich is an American staple. It's timeless, like baseball. It's easy to make, tastes great, and the ingredients are fairly cheap. Kids and parents alike enjoy it. And while some companies have tried to innovate on it, the basic components are still assembled by hand across the country in millions of homes on a daily basis. But have you ever stopped to think, is the peanut butter and jelly sandwich healthy? The peanut butter and jelly sandwich, an American standard, may actually be in trouble. From 1998 to 2008, peanut allergies in the U.S. tripled. Peanuts are the most common allergen for children, and experts aren't completely sure why. They've pointed to everything from vitamin D deficiencies to early exposure to peanut butter as the cause, but more recently doctors have suggested that deficiencies in beneficial bacteria in our gut's microbiome are probably to blame. But for households with children without a peanut allergy, which is still an overwhelming majority, the sandwich is as popular as ever. But the question remains, is it healthy? To answer that question, let's define what healthy means. One definition is, quote, to promote good health, which kind of breaks a rule I learned in grade school about how to properly define a word, where you don't use that word in the definition. But anyway, let's take that a step further because a food may have both health-promoting and health-degrading qualities at the same time. So let's say the balance must be in favor of health promotion. I also think we need to look at least two different example sandwiches because with so many varieties of bread, jelly, and peanut butter available today, two people making peanut butter and jelly could make completely different sandwiches. But how different are they really? First, let's consider the standard, an all-conventional sandwich, white bread, creamy peanut butter, and jelly. The nutritional information for this sandwich would include 400 total calories, 18 grams of fat, 52 grams of carbs, which includes 19 grams of sugar and 3 grams of fiber, 13 grams of protein, and 390 milligrams of sodium. For this theoretical sandwich, I used information from White Wonder Bread, Creamy Jif Peanut Butter, and Smucker's Concord Grape Jelly. It was theoretically delicious. For our second sandwich, let's use Jif's Natural Peanut Butter, organic 100% whole wheat bread from a brand called Dave's Killer Bread instead of the conventional white bread, and we'll use a brand called Simple Truth's organic Concord Grape Fruits Bread instead of jelly. A quick side note, the difference between jelly and this fruit spread or preserves is important here. Jelly is always made with fruit juice and pectin, or at least usually pectin, to give it that gelatinous texture. It is made with no pieces of solid fruit, thus no fiber. The fruit spread is made with actual fruit, not just the fruit juice, so you get all, or at least most, of the benefits of the whole fruit. You can look at the ingredients of any jelly, jam, preserve, or fruit spread and see if it was made with fruit juice or the whole pieces of fruit. In our example sandwiches, the Smucker's jelly ingredients specify grape juice as its first ingredient. And since ingredients in the U.S. have to be listed in order based on quantity and in descending order, we know that fruit juice is the ingredient most prominent in that jelly. The first ingredient in the fruit spread, on the other hand, is organic grapes, not organic grape juice. So we know the fruit spread is mostly made from whole grapes. The nutritional information for our second sandwich would include 430 calories, 18 grams of fat, 61 grams of carbs, which includes 20 grams of sugar and 8 grams of fiber, 15 grams of protein, and about 400 milligrams of sodium. You'll notice that many of these numbers are higher than the first example sandwich, but I should point out that the 2 slices of bread in terms of grams was quite a bit more for the whole wheat bread than it was for the white bread. The white bread is thinner, or sliced thinner, and not as dense, so the whole wheat bread was 84 grams for 2 slices compared to 63 grams for 2 slices of white bread. So adjusting for the size difference per serving of bread, we actually end up with very similar nutritional information, with at least one notable difference: fiber. There is more than double the amount of fiber in our second sandwich, even after adjusting down, than there is in our first example. Whole wheat contains both soluble and insoluble fiber. According to the American Heart Association, the fiber in whole wheat may help improve blood cholesterol levels and lower risk of heart disease, stroke, obesity, and type 2 diabetes. Whole grain foods are digested more slowly than their white flour-based counterparts, and this helps control your glucose levels. In white bread, you lose most of the nutritional content when you remove the wheat bran and the germ. Some vitamins are added back to enrich the product, but not nearly all of the nutrition is returned and none of the fiber is. So with white bread, you are left with a nutrient-poor food that is broken down quickly by your body and causes big spikes in blood sugar. Now, if we stopped our comparison here, I would personally choose the second sandwich for its fiber content alone. But if we continue our comparison beyond the nutritional information and macronutrients, we will find that the second sandwich is free of something called glyphosate. Now, I'm probably going to get into the weeds here, but I think our analysis today would be incomplete if we didn't mention GMOs when talking about healthy food choices. GMO stands for Genetically Modified Organism. You may also see the abbreviation GM, which stands for Genetically Modified, or GE, Genetically Engineered. If an organism, in this case a crop like corn, has been genetically modified, then its genetic material has been altered through genetic engineering. Right now, the most common way we are using GMOs is to engineer crops that are resistant to herbicides and insecticides. In the case of herbicides, we have engineered Roundup-ready crops, which means we can spray this chemical on fields of GMO corn, soy, canola, alfalfa, cotton, and sugar beets, and it will kill the weeds, but not the crop. The active ingredient in this and other similar herbicides is glyphosate. While the jury is still out on whether genetically modified crops have any direct negative health effects, there is evidence that shows glyphosate is harmful in humans, and it seems the chemical is making it onto our plates. When it is sprayed on GMO crops, it ends up in our food, and then of course we eat it. Even in small amounts, glyphosate may be harmful to humans when ingested. There are many conflicting reports on this information, but there is enough scientific evidence for me to stay clear of those types of GMOs as often as possible. I should point out that I do not consider myself to be completely anti-GMO. I think that research and development of GMOs should continue, and hopefully one day will make them more helpful than harmful. But it is mostly because of the use of glyphosate that I personally avoid GMOs. Not to mention the added problem of sustainability when regarding farming practices for these types of crops. USDA organic foods cannot be genetically modified, so farmers wouldn't be able to use glyphosate on their organic crops. Our example sandwich number 1 almost certainly contains GMOs because of the high fructose corn syrup and corn syrup used in the jelly. Sandwich number 2 does not contain GMOs. The 2 Jif peanut butters in our example sandwiches, both of them, state that they are non-GMO certified. And the National Peanut Board says that peanut farmers don't use glyphosate on their peanuts anyway because they are not a Roundup-ready crop, and there aren't any GMO peanuts on the market today. They go on to say that even if there is glyphosate in the soil, that peanuts do not absorb it. That last line, taken from the National Peanut Board website, and their explanation for why they think peanuts do not absorb glyphosate, leaves me a little skeptical, but that's what they say. As for wheat, it's also said that there is no commercially grown genetically modified wheat. But there are reports from as far back as 1999 of genetically modified wheat being found in grain shipments and on farmers' fields, with at least one farmer even filing a lawsuit against Monsanto, the owner of the strain of genetically modified wheat that was found in his field. The USDA investigated and closed the case, stating that they found no evidence of genetically engineered wheat in commerce and called this an isolated incident. So what do you think? Is one peanut butter and jelly sandwich healthier than the other? Are either of them truly healthy? I'd argue yes, the peanut butter and jelly sandwich can be a healthy meal. That is to say, with the right ingredients, it can promote more benefits than harm. Maybe be mindful of the portion sizes for kids, but what is the perfect combination of ingredients in a world with so many varieties of peanut butter bread and fruit spreads? I realize this has been a far cry from a true scientific study, but we have applied a critical thinking process to something important that we do every day: feed our kids. It's important to know what we are putting in our bodies. How else can we maintain our health? I want to teach my kids good eating habits, and the first step in that educational process is with my own understanding, making sure I know the basics of food and nutrition so I can pass that knowledge on. Looking at what is in our food, comparing conventional and organically grown ingredients, and finding out where our food comes from is a great way to learn about nutrition and healthy eating. And we may even learn the answers to important questions about our food, like, what is peanut cheese? If you enjoyed today's program, please leave us a review on iTunes. That helps our show be found by more people. And if you would like to know other ways you can support the show, please visit ignorantparenting.com. Have a great day. There may never be a better time to look into the future and just see you. Now the devilish misconception that I'm sure you know, not everybody gets a ticket to the show. But what I found is what I thought: a higher power keeps the back door unlocked. You may not feel that it's justified, but I promise, little one, it's true. There may never be a better time to look into the future and just see you. Now when you get free and you find the sun, just realize you're not the only one. And you can tell your mama and tell her well. You can tell your mama to go